like, God, you were so intentional with time, because if I met you anytime sooner
We're not
than
on
when
this
I
couch
met
together.
you, we're not here. We're not here, okay?
But we're here now.
But
so
we're here now,
yeah,
so we just thank God.
All right. Well, what's going on, everybody? This is Austin Smith and
Brea Smith.
and welcome to the official first episode of the Growing in Love podcast. That's when they do the little, the applause and
We
everything.
just want to thank God.
We just want to thank God. First, giving honor to God,
Y'all
who
know
is the head of
how
my
the
life.
celebrities go up and they thank God, and ain't nothing about their songs is godly.
Hey, you starting off in the intro like this? They don't even know you.
I'm sorry.
See, that's what's wrong. The church is judgmental. Just judgmental. Well, listen.
What God?
Oh, God. Here we go. Well, listen, we are excited to start this podcast officially. I'm very excited. This is the first episode, and I think a lot of times in the world, whenever you are doing anything, context is everything, right? Context. You need context. You walk into a conversation without context, you have chaos.
The preacher.
I'm sorry. So we just want to give context essentially to like, what is this podcast about? You know, everybody has a podcast now, but what's going to make ours different? I think first just making it different is us, just being us. We're not trying to be anyone else, but just us. Yeah. And you're probably like, well, who are you guys? Right. So we're going to talk about that in this podcast as well. But first, just with growing in love, you want to kind of give just like some context to like, what does growing in love mean? I actually have it tattooed on my arm, but like what does it mean? Like, why growing in love?
So growing in love is pretty much has been the theme of our marriage since we got married 7 years ago. And it just means that you're in a continuous process of growing. And we don't want it to just be a relationship type podcast, but growing in every aspect. So growing in your health, growing in your relationship with God, growing in finances, growing in your marriage, growing your family. Okay. We have 2 kids.
Two of them boys.
So yeah, just growth. I think I just love the concept of growing, but growing in a healthy way. So that's what we want to do. We want to help people grow. We're going to be growing throughout this podcast, and hopefully you'll be able to see the growth within us as well. But yeah, we just want to grow with you guys. We're inviting you guys into our lives, the parts that we're going to show you, of course. But yeah, we just want to invite everyone just to grow with us in every aspect.
Yeah, growing in every aspect, holistic growth. And one part of our podcast, this is going to be something that we do every podcast episode until we decide to switch it up. But I think we're going to stick it out and keep it a part of the rhythm. Yeah. Starting off with this question that you can even think about as you watch every episode, but we're going to ask ourselves. Well, I'm going to ask you, okay, and you can ask me.
Okay.
But what are you growing through this week? Keyword, not going through.
Well, what are you growing through?
What are you growing
Because we're going to
through?
get through this. We're not just going to go through it. We're going to get through it.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm just going to be very transparent and vulnerable with you guys because that's what we're going to do. That's how you grow, right? You got to be transparent, okay? So, if you know me and you don't know me yet, I am a researcher, okay? So, I am a Google queen. If I want to know something, I'm going to Google it. And anyways, and I'm also a podcast queen. I'm always looking at podcasts, always trying to find ways to grow. But recently I have been very focused on just growing in a healthy way. So I've been looking into just eating meat, just doing research behind that and figuring out if it's actually really good for my body. After I had my first son, Bryce, who is 5 years old now, I started having like just really bad allergies, didn't know what I was allergic to. Took blood tests, tried to figure it out, but never was really able to do that. And so I started just kind of going on my own journey to figure it out for myself. So the first thing I did was I recently went to a holistic doctor. They provide a full lab panel test for you, things that your regular doctor and regular medicine, traditional medicine doesn't really do for you. A lot of times traditional medicine, like from what he was saying, is they just try to figure out, listen, are you dying? And if not, then, you're good. But they're not really going to go in depth of, how you are in a healthy, in health wise. And so I decided that I was going to be pescatarian. Okay. Pescatarian, because I knew I couldn't give up salmon. I eat salmon all the time. I love my fish. But one thing that I'm growing through is it's been a long week. I've only been pescatarian for a week. And listen, let's just say that God is good because
Baby steps of progress.
Yes, even baby steps is progress. That's my quote. That is the quote that I live by. And I think sometimes, it's just very easy to go back to things that are very familiar to you. But in order to grow, you're going to have to get out your comfort zone. You can't always run back to what's familiar, and that's how you grow. So that's what I'm going through. I'm going to stick to it. Y'all help be my accountability. Okay. Because my husband, he's not helping me. Okay. He ate wings and pepperoni pizza yesterday. And I'm just like,
Okay.
wow.
Love,
Wow. I
love
thought we were going on this journey together.
I thought you loved me too.
But you know what?
Okay.
Also, I am also growing through not trying to force people to make the decisions that I make, because I am that type of person. Like, if I learn something new, I'm like, listen,
Whole
you ain't
house.
gonna die. Leave me with these 2 kids by myself, okay? I refuse. So you're gonna be pescatarian too. I'm like, you know what? Okay, God, let me just allow him to process. You speak to him when you feel ready, and when he's ready to become pescatarian, that's what's gonna happen. But I'm praying.
Yeah.
I'm praying for you.
It's coming. It's coming. We're growing. We're growing
We're
through
growing. Yes.
So for me, I am growing through. I'm in a current. People like using the word season. I think just the stage of the journey that I'm in right now of my life, I'm growing through how to handle and steward the more that God gives you. It's one thing to pray for something. It's another thing to walk in the prayer and to realize that there's more that comes with more. So for myself, my speaking schedule is picking up. It's actually an answered prayer that I thought at times would never be answered, just because it just wasn't happening. And sometimes when stuff isn't happening, you tend to lose heart, and you don't know if it was you or if it was God. But for me, the schedule is picking up, but with that schedule comes a greater responsibility on time management, how you steward your craft. How do you recover? How do you rest? How do we maintain our schedule and family time? And when I'm home, I need to be home. And, like all of that. And just navigating through. I was in New York last weekend and came back home off an hour of sleep, but realizing that it's easy to complain about a thing when you forget that you actually prayed for it.
That's so good.
Just learning how to navigate through the more and what comes with that, and growing through that, and believing that, stewarding where I'm at in the now, so that I can be trusted even more with the next. So, growing through it.
So good. Yep. I think everybody is like captivated about having more, but nobody really prays for God to prepare you to be able to sustain it. You know what I'm saying? And that's probably one of the biggest things, because you don't just want more, you want to be able to sustain the more and have it not, consume you. So that's so good.
Yeah. So we're giving all these gems. You're dropping gems, but people don't know who we are. Right. So I want to get into who we are. Me, one of my things that I say often when I meet people, my wife jokes a lot, because she's just like, you can make friends with anybody.
Facts.
I could make friends with a tree. Guys, we're just built different. We see each other once. Hey man, let me get your number. Let's chop it up. We'll get breakfast. Women,
best friends next day.
It's a different story. But for me, I'm big on relationship before function. So as you're watching this podcast, I want us to build relationship. Again, it's virtual. I get it. It's social media, whatever. But through this platform, building a relationship, walking with us, getting to know us, who we are, not just what we do, but who we are. I think that's important, because oftentimes in society, we are more fixated on what we do. Like when you introduce yourself to someone, you might tell them your name, but automatically, usually the next question is like, so what do you do? Because we like to attach our identity to our craft, to our skill set, to our position, to our titles, to how much money we make, like thinking that that's the thing that makes us. So, let's get into that. Who are we? Who is Brea? Let's do that. Who are you? Okay.
First of all,
What?
that explanation. That's a really deep question. Who
Uh,
are you?
that is. There's levels to that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm still growing in who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the reason why people make their identity what they do is because they spend so much time doing what they do that they never really get time to really be introduced to themselves because most of their time they're doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyways, when it comes to my roles of who I am a wife of 7 years. So we got married in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mother of 2 boys, so a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old named Bryson Aiden. And I am an employee, so I work a full-time job in digital marketing for a hospitality management company. And I'm also a entrepreneur. So I own my own social media management business. I own a flipping furniture business. I just do a lot of things. But yeah, I am a daughter of God. Okay, most importantly. And I'm really just grown in my relationship with God. I feel like there has been a lot that has happened just with me really understanding my relationship with God and understanding that I am not just what I do within ministry, because we have come from a long line of just being in ministry and just being in leadership in ministry. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And give us a little more context, like, because people aren't as familiar with. Did you grow up in church? Like, how'd you grow up? Like, what's your
Sorry,
story
guys.
when it comes to like,
So yeah,
so people can, because I think there's a lot of people that can relate
yeah.
to both of us, and there's going to be some things that I think you speak to a lot of
Yeah.
women and just people in general.
Yeah, so I did not grow up in church. I think we were kind of the family. I don't know if anybody can relate, but we were just a family who went to church on Easter Sunday and Christmas.
Did y'all go on Mother's Day?
Yeah, sometimes with my grandma.
Okay.
But yeah, I really just didn't know a lot about church. I just know that I always felt good when I was there. Like I have my mom and my dad, they always tell me this story of when I was a little girl. I was like around 3 or 4 and we were driving by a church and I started crying because I was like, I just want to go to church. Like I just want to get into the house of church. I just want to go inside. And I remember they had to turn back around. They had to turn the car around and they had to actually go up to the door to see if the church was open. And they had to show me that it was locked so I could stop crying because it was something about being in the house, being in the presence of God that I just loved so much as a child. But I just didn't go very frequently because my parents just, we just didn't go very much. But one thing can say is that, I used to always like look at Austin's life because he is a PK and be like, dang, I wish we would have just went to church like that.
Hold up real quick for people who don't know what's a PK. What's a PK?
Oh, a preacher's kid. So his father was a pastor. His father was a preacher. And I used to be like, dang, like I really want that because maybe I wouldn't have gone through so much when I was in high school or just trying to figure out certain things at the beginning of college. And I realize so much more now that a lot of people, when they grow up in church, they learn religion before they learn who God is. And I can honestly say that because my relationship was so organic and I wasn't forced into it, that I truly had a relationship with God at such a young age. And it was just from the most innocent, simple things. Like I think nowadays it's kind of like a trend to, you got to do all these things to grow in your relationship with God. You got to read your Bible every single day. You got to wake up, you got to pray at 5 a.m. and you got to do, and there's so many checklists of things that you have to do. And God makes it so simple for us. And I feel like we have overcomplicated things. And God is just like, listen, when you wake up, listen, if you just want to talk to me, you can do that. If you're in your shower and you feel led to communicate with me, do that. Like, make it organic, make it genuine. I don't have a checklist of the times of day that I need to talk to my husband. But because we have a relationship, I feel led to do that organically. It's a natural thing. And I feel like that's what God is wanting for a lot of us in our relationships. But we've made it a thing where it's on us, right? It's just like, this is what you do. There's a checklist of things. And I really don't think it's supposed to be like that. But yes, so I didn't grow up in church. My relationship with God happened very organically. I remember being in high school and there was this girl named, well, maybe I shouldn't say your name, but it was a friend of mine. And
I don't think she would care. She don't have to.
Yeah. Well, there's this friend of mine, and I remember, like, I wasn't like a completely ratchet child growing up, but I did have my ratchet moments. And I remember I used to always go to these house parties, just twerking, drinking at a very young age. By the time I turned 21, I had stopped drinking. That's how much I drank when I was in high school. And anyways, I remember she was always cursing, but she actually sounded good cursing. I sounded terrible. Like every time I cursed, my friends would be like, girl, like stop. You don't even sound good doing this. Like this is not you.
You don't even put them
But she
together,
was the
right?
one who sounded great at cursing. I was like, okay, all right. I'd never heard of that one, but we're going to use that one. And I remember she was in my psychology class, and the next summer, so that was the summer of my sophomore year. When I got back to school my junior year, she was in my class, and I just remembered she was completely different. So that summer, we were twerking at parties, drinking and cursing and doing all this stuff. But when we came back to school, she was a totally different person. And I was just like, I just remember asking her, like, girl, what happened? Like, you don't sound the same. You don't look the same. You don't dress the same. You don't respond the same in certain situations. Like, she would always used to like argue back and forth with her teacher. But the respect, the honor that she would give our teachers, our classmates, it was just like she was completely different. And I was like, girl, what is this? You can see the joy on her. Like, I'm not even making this up. Like, I could just tell something was different within her. And so she was like, well, meet me at lunch, let me tell you. And she was the first person who told me about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mm. And that was it. Like, gave my life to Christ. And that was it. And it was such a, just an organic situation, the way that it happened. It didn't happen in church. It just happened through a conversation with a friend of seeing God truly transform her life. I knew it had to be nobody but God. Mm. Like, when you see somebody and you know how they used to be, and then you see God change them from the inside out, you're like, you're a completely different person. When the Lord says that, listen, the old has passed away, you're like, Lord, like, she was completely new. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
What about you? Who are you? Who is Austin?
Who's Austin? That was like you said, that's a loaded question that in the past I would have answered probably first by trying to say it by my function. Yeah. Austin is a son. Austin is constantly growing. Austin is evolving. Austin is a father. He's a husband. He's a friend. He's a brother. Austin does things such as leadership development and organizational development. So building culture by building people and investing in the people. Austin is a speaker. Austin is a preacher or teacher, preacher, treacher, whatever.
You better speak in third person.
Is that a thing? Austin is a chaplain.
Okay.
So I walk with, pretty much with chaplaincy, I help walk with athletes, college and professional athletes, emphasizing who they are off the court versus who they are on the court or on the field of play. So when we sit down and talk, we're not talking about basketball. We're talking about life. We're talking about family. We're talking about navigating through the pressure of being at a high level with high demands, and how do I not, do something crazy, so just someone who can be in their corner without wanting something from them. So Austin is a person who loves building relationships. That's been who that's my mom has said that's been me since I've been young. So like when I used to have birthday parties, I would invite like all the classmates. Like I remember I used to feel bad for like not like leaving somebody off the list. Like it was like I was like, in fantasy football where you trying to like figure out your draft board and everything. Like it was like because I really value, I've always valued relationships. Like that's just always been me. Yes. And I don't know where that comes from. I think that's just the way that God has wired me. My family has always been big on, having people over and, making them feel at home. Like Brea said, I'm a PK, so my parents are pastors. My dad's a pastor currently right now still. And that was an interesting journey because being a PK, one, there's an expectation that people have on your parents. There's an expectation that people have on the pastor or just people who are in ministry, right? And that expectation not only falls on them, but it falls on their children as well. So when you act up, people like, I'm gonna tell you that, it's just like that extra pressure that other kids don't get. So that not only happens in church, but it happened in school as well. So, getting the Good Citizenship Award, like that was like a thing for me. Like, I know it sounds nerdy now, but my life was like really built on performance. I have an athletic background, so I'm a huge basketball junkie. As you see with my hat right now, I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan. So I'm already talking junk in the back, but it's okay, you know. But you know, being a basketball fan and just being an athlete growing up in the world of sports, the metric of success is based upon what you do on the field, on the court, and how many points you can score, what you can do on that specific field of play, and getting a response from the crowd, you know, and your stats and everything. The issue with that is it works on the court, but it doesn't work in life, you know. And I think we all have a metric of success that we're going by that may just be different than what God has for us. And I think the metric for success that God has for us starts with abiding in him, like you say, and being still, knowing that he is God. But even as the Bible says, like, don't conform to the pattern or the culture of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you know what his good and perfect will is, you know. So for me, I chased a lot of, am I good enough? You know, that started from a young age, and that was even with having both of my parents in my life, but, you know, still feeling like I had something to prove, to them, to myself, to others. So, you know, whether it been in church, whether it been in school, whether it been in sports, then, you know, you get to high school and, you know, trying to fit into a school that was predominantly white, you know, trying to find myself, trying to find myself in college, whether it being with, you know, stuff with, you know, trying to get in a fraternity, trying to get in organizations, women, you know, just like it's a pattern that, because here's the thing, the pattern continues if you don't deal with it. Like if you don't get to the root of what it really is, it shows up in other areas of your life. Okay. And, you know, for me, I'm doing kind of like a speed up version, but for me, you know, one of the big things was like ministry, like, am I enough? And, you know, we'll talk about this in another episode, but just like for us, we had pastored a church in 2020. I don't know, like that. Yeah, in 2020, right? So somebody said, "Oh God,"
Not knowing it was going to be the pandemic.
not knowing it's going to be the pandemic, but you know, just even, am I enough? That was very loud and echoing in that place. And then when God shifts you from what you were comfortable or familiar with, like you said earlier, and then takes you into the unknown without any warning, that's traumatizing. That's traumatizing. We'll have to talk about that in the episode when we talk about just navigating new. But yeah, like, who am I now? I think I'm at a place where I'm starting to find my rhythm, in a healthy rhythm, and in a way that's authentic to who I am and who God's made me to be, not feeling like I have to fit into the box that others have tried to force me into, but really just walking freely and doing it fun too, you know, and not having to apologize, like understanding I have full permission to be Austin. I don't have to be anybody else. That's good. And my grandma has this nickname for me. I won't say the other side of the nickname. Don't you do it either.
Okay.
But we'll she said NBA, and it means nobody but Austin. And she used to say like nobody but Austin, nobody else. But like now, like that hits different, you know. And lately, people have been giving like words, but like part of the words have been like, yo, just be authentically who you are. Yeah. Because when you try to duplicate someone else, you miss the opportunity and block the blessing of just being you and letting God meet you in that place and partnering with him in this, in that. So yeah, that's who I am, man. And I'm still learning, I'm still growing, you know. So yeah, so that's us, right? But like individually, what about, you know, how do we meet? You know, we said we got married, right?
Yeah. So who are we together?
Yeah, who are we together? That's a better way. Thank you. You're like, yeah, they were married. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we are obviously married. We met in college. So we went to the Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Yes. The woo.
The woo. And we met, your last year in college?
2013.
My junior year in college. Mm-hmm. thankfully we met at that time. Now our parents actually we probably grew up around 15 to 20 minutes away from each other our whole lives. They still live about 15 to 20 minutes apart. But I'm like, God, you are so intentional with time, because if I met you anytime sooner than when I met together. We're not here. We're not here, okay?
But we're here now.
But we're here now, so we just thank God.
Yeah,
but
thank God.
Yeah, so we met in college, my junior year, his senior year. And I was doing a spiritual blog at the time with one of my friends. And I remember she told me, because you were doing a graphic design, you had a graphic design company at the time, and we were looking for a logo to be done. And so my friend reached out to Austin and was just like, hey, we need a logo for our blog. Are you willing to do it? And he said, yeah, but while they were trying to have this business thing going on, he was like, but your friend Brea, though, like, what's up with her? I was like, because like I knew of Austin. I didn't know him personally on that level, but I was just like, listen, I had just gotten out of not even a relationship, like a situationship. And I was like, this ain't, I don't need any of that right now. I need God to still work in me. I'm working through some things, and a relationship right now is just not it's not for me. But later on down the line, you slid in my DMs on Twitter. You were asking about the logo. Never really worked out. Because we kept asking you to revise the logo, and I think you were kind of over it at the time. You were like, I'm not doing this over again.
Here's the thing. You were looking for a logo, but God gave you love. That's a word.
Bro, we praise God.
That's a whole word. I'm going to leave that alone.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. You slid in the DMs, and now we're here.
Now we're here, and of course that's a
very
fast forward version. But I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for us to talk about the stories. And
yes, because people love to say, how did you know he was the one?
Yeah, okay. We'll definitely
we'll go into that.
We'll definitely have to do that. But here's the last thing I want to wrap up the conversation with. We've been kind of meddling with this, and we had the YouTube channel before. And of course, like, everyone has a podcast now. Like, that's the cool thing to do. Like, why start this podcast? Like, I like to hear your perspective, or if you want me to share mine. But like, let's just kind of share why we decided to really do this, and what we're believing that's going to come out of this. Like, what are we?
Yeah, I feel like we started to do this podcast because we just wanted to be very transparent. I don't think it was to compare ourselves to anybody. There's tons of like podcasts out here right now, and nobody really needs another podcast. But I just feel like it's something that God is calling us to do. And I know everybody says that, but I feel like sometimes you just have to be obedient to God, even when you're like, God, why? You know, not another one, because we have so many other things that we could be doing. But I also think that we just want to be very transparent. We don't want to come off as experts on any topic. And that's why the title of our podcast is Growing in Love, because we're truly growing in every aspect that God has called us to. And we just want other people to grow with us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm just excited to do this with you. I think it's going to be really good, not because it's just us, but I think there's beauty and authenticity and vulnerability. And I'm excited to share with people the journey of becoming, what we're figuring out. Like, it was different when we were married and doing the YouTube channel, and we were like freshly married. Like, I don't think we had any business probably doing a channel, but now we've had a little bit more life, right? Have some kids, have some experiences. So to be able just to share that in an authentic way and to show people that, hey, like, yeah, this isn't solely a Christian podcast. This is a podcast about life, love, relationships, culture, all the above, whatever's on the table. But we are believers in Jesus Christ, and there's going to be that perspective as well. So we're having fun with it. We're going to grow through this. We're going to learn through it, and hopefully you continue to journey with us on this podcast, Growing in Love. So thank you for tuning in on the first episode, and we hope to see you soon.